And I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
It could be calm. There's too much going on. Welcome to a Sunday edition of the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks. You can subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as on the Area 51 Sports Network. We are the next time the Vegas Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers play a hockey game, the Stanley Cup trophy will be in the room, which means if Vegas wins, they will get to raise that said Stanley Cup on Tuesday. But we've got an early beginning to the offseason with the Columbus Blue Jackets making some moves, Philadelphia Flyers, LA Kings as well. The Calgary Flames are about to introduce their new head coach, which I don't think is much of a surprise for anybody. We'll talk about that and much, much more. Hello, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing well, Kevin. How are you?
I'm good. I feel like it's in the video here, we're both in different locations. Well, I'm in my newer location that I've been in for a few weeks now, but you have a different background as well.
Yeah, I just moved from one part of West Kelowna to technically a Kelowna address, but I'm still on the west side of the lake. Just decided to cut my commute in half.
Is this like is that how we debate which is part of the Fraser Valley and Lower Mainland? Is this that debate?
I mean, it's probably in the same realm of arguability, yeah.
And injured. He's the Matthew Tkachuk of this podcast right now. Not only is he dealing with his leg injury, you injured your hand, Devin.
Yes. I lost a fight with an X-Acto knife and didn't. I mean, it turned out pretty well considering, but my hand is a little bit fucked up to say the least. Thankfully, missed nerves, missed the main artery, missed a tendon. So all things considered, I'll take what I got right now.
Fair. Well, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here as well, Chris. Sean, you're here as well.
I am, and yeah, someone who's gone through tendon surgery on my hand. I'm glad Devin avoided that. So, but yeah, today's been awesome for drama in terms of sports. We got for the first time in 69 years, a Canadian has won the PGA Canadian Open. Congratulations, Abbotsford's own Nick Taylor.
Yes, congratulations to him. And yeah, good day for, finally Canadian wins the championship. Of course, with all that hubbubaloo about it's now been over 30 years since the Montreal Canadiens have won the Stanley Cup. There was a 30-year anniversary, by the way, on Friday, the last Canadian team that won the Stanley Cup. Of course, it doesn't come without drama. It's a playoff, and then there's a tackle of Adam Hadwin. The CFL started, so I guess in honor of that, there we go. But it's funny. I wanted to let's start here. This is not a hockey-related story in terms of this, but I do think it's an important conversation. And sometimes we have to transcend this. Basically, Liv and PGA have gotten together after everything of the controversy of all that was going on. The two golf entities have gotten together and have become one. What a strange way to let everyone know they were on. It was through Twitter. I think that I think it's just, for the golfer, maybe we'll start with Devin. I think I'm kind of curious what your thoughts on this are and what this means. Will this mean anything for the up and comer golfers of the world?
Yes, it will. Anybody who is looking to get their card within the new entity of Live PGA Tour and also the DP Tour as well, they will be maybe having a bit more of an issue trying to get their card and keep their card and keep their own personal lives going, being a professional golfer. Don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but that's just my initial thoughts on kind of the up and comers of or I guess the amateur golfers trying to make it big within professional golf. It's massive move. Everybody was caught off guard, even the players. Jay Monahan, the president of the PGA Tour, kind of retracting or backpedaling, if you will, from his recent comments, the recent comments within the past year or so. I don't know. It's very interesting and intriguing, and I love drama within the sports that I follow, which golf is definitely one of them, and hockey is the other major one. I could give a shit about the rest of them. So it's exciting time in our world.
Yeah,
What's the drama for you?
Oh, the drama. It's not having the communication between the players and understanding what is happening within the PGA Tour. You had Rory McIlroy be very vocal about how people or players going over to the Live Golf League, and how, the whole thing with Live Golf, for people don't know, is that it's a Saudi Arabia princes that are taking over, and that money that they have is quote unquote blood money, and how that they get it is a completely different thing. I don't want to really get into that, but it is very controversial of why they have the money that they have. So with the professional player or professional golfers going over to Live last year, that was a big hot button topic of where the money is coming from and where they're getting paid from. So within this whole thing, it is controversial on multiple levels, because now the money that the PGA Tour is using is partially from the Saudi Arabias.
Yeah, that's part of where this is. Sean, Chris, what do you guys have thoughts on?
Well, yeah, it's just interesting that you have the Saudi Arabian investment fund that has been, I guess, diversifying. They've got their fingers in a few football clubs out in Europe. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing that, seeing them extend that into the NBA pretty soon here, because basketball is a growing sport around the world, especially they had the Live Tour, where they were just throwing money left, right, and center out at some of these top players, and yeah, it's the frustration of seeing what that regime has, the controversies with it that follow them around, and then the other thing with the Saudis is, yeah, they've extended their fingers into WWE as well, and there's lots of just questions with that, from how they handle critical media. And so that's why there's a lot of frustration, questions, and concern with that partnership.
Yeah, as far as like the whole sports washing aspect, it's definitely something that I'm not too stoked on, generally speaking, because as Devin was kind of alluding to, the fact that where this money originates from and whatnot is definitely questionable at best. And basically the act of investing in these international sports is basically a way of them almost trying to like clean their money by investing it into legitimate practices and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely not a huge fan of that, generally speaking. As far as like Rory's comments on, like, he basically just wanted all the golfers to be aligned. He wasn't really taking like a hard moral stance as far as like the where the money's coming from end of things, or at least that's my understanding of the situation. Whereas, sorry, what was the name of the president?
Jay
Monahan.
Monahan.
Yeah, so he definitely kind of pulled a fast one on all the golfers, and I think it's kind of sketchy that all of a sudden he's now the new CEO of this now for-profit organization that is going to be combining Live Golf with the PGA Tour. So definitely seems very hypocritical of him, where he was trying to take this whole holier than thou moral stance, trying to like drag in like comparisons of like 9/11 and how Saudi Arabia was tied in with that, and then all of a sudden, or maybe not all of a sudden, but at least publicly speaking, all of a sudden comes out with this new deal where they're now in bed with the Saudis and Live Golf. So it comes across very hollow as far as what he was trying to come across this past year in their verbal back and forth between PGA and Live.
And for those of you who don't know, they offered the type of money that they're talking about right now. They offered Tiger Woods just short of $1 billion to come over and play for the Live Tour. So that's the type of money that they're dealing with, and it's scary. I mean, as far as monopolizing sports and monopolizing basically everything in general, because they have that much money. It's a little scary because there was reported, there's been reports out there talking about how they want to bring their assets up to $1 trillion by 2023, or sorry, 2030, $1 trillion. And that's absurd money. So within the grand scheme of things, like morally, it's really kind of questionable and shitty. But from the viewership aspect, I'm curious on where they're going to go. The Live Tour is much more about the teams and about not so much the individual play of players. So I'm kind of curious, because that's what the PGA Tour has been known for, is individual players playing for notoriety and who's the best. But the Live was very much a team aspect. So it's kind of curious to see where the cut lines are going to be. Is it going to be top 50 players going to be playing in most tournaments? And that's where the Kevin's question of amateurs trying to become big within the golf world, how does this affect them? So there are a lot of questions. I mean, as far as the viewership goes, I'm kind of looking forward to it, as much as I hate to say it. But it'll be interesting to see how things transpire within the next few months.
Yeah, if there's a silver lining that I'm maybe looking for at this point, it's the innovation that what Live was trying to shake up and change with golf, how much the PGA is going to allow that to basically kind of bleed into this new collaboration that they have, whether it's ensuring that all guys are wearing full-length pants and not shorts, whether it's the team aspect like Devin was talking about. It's basically trying to innovate the sport versus like the traditional sort of gatekeepy sort of vibe that the PGA had or was known for.
And I think, I could see, what they've done with the WWE is certainly the women have had a certain dress expectation in matches there. So I could see that being something that is a conversation, I guess. But from
Well,
a
the
big
thing that what Chris is getting at is the Live Tour actually allows them to wear shorts on the course, while the PGA actually doesn't.
all right, well,
And
there's me and
the
my
other-
golf.
and the thing that Devin sort of touched on too is the traditional PGA golf tournament setup is 4 rounds. The first 2, you have a certain amount of players invited or qualified, and after the first 2 rounds, they cut down the field by a certain amount, and then they play the third and fourth rounds. With Live, they got rid of that, and I believe it was only a 3-round tournament without a cut, because they were only inviting a certain amount of players. So I think, Chris, you talked about a little bit of the gatekeeping. Unfortunately, that's actually more gatekeeping than having a larger group of golfers to start the weekend and having their performance determine whether or not they go into the weekend and make money.
That's fair. What I was more so meaning when I was bringing up gatekeeping was just how traditional, like, set in their ways that the PGA Tour has always kind of come across, and very like it's just always been this way. These are the way that the rules are, and we're not willing to flex on that. Whereas it seemed like Liv was trying to be like, well, what's better for the game moving forward? What will make it more exciting? What will make it more appealing to fans, or what have you? So that's what I'm more so was getting at with the gatekeeping aspect, not necessarily the mechanics of how they were running the tournaments.
And what's sad about it is that the past 2 years with the Masters, you had Will Zalatoris, who was a rookie coming into, well, he technically wasn't a rookie, but he was a young player coming into the PGA Tour. He got his card, and he made a run for it for the Masters last year, not 2023, but 2022. And this year, not the Sam Bennett that we know, but the Sam Bennett of the golf world, who is a rookie. He had a hell of a run as well. So I don't think we won't see those again, which kind of sucks just for storylines and seeing the underdogs kind of come out. But the product should be better with having the best in the world play against the best in the world, and that's essentially what sports is all about, right?
Yeah, that's what I think we always want to see the best on best of what we can do. To move this though to kind of the team sport aspect, Sean mentioned that he could see an involvement with the NBA. I mean, I'm wondering where we are at with the 4 sports in terms of the 4 majors: NBA, NFL, MLB, and of course, to play what we talk about, NHL, in terms of where they're going to, going to get involved. I would think, Sean, that Adam Silver is going to be the one that, if anyone's going to resist this for moral reasons, I could see Adam Silver being the one that puts his hands up and says, not on our watch. And yes, the NBA is thriving right now. But I'm wondering where we're at with the NFL, MLB, and NHL. How close are we to seeing this involvement?
I don't think we're very close at all with the NHL. I think it's a sort of lower down in terms of where on the rankings, and a little bit farther off the radar for the Saudi investment fund. But I think they'll be very interested in the NBA. I think there'll be some interest in the NFL. But I don't see it with the MLB either. I think what they're looking at is not necessarily, yes, good investments, but they're also looking at sports and properties that
Have
are
international
going to
appeal.
grow globally.
Yeah.
So hold on. I just want to let me toss a scenario out here.
No.
pie in the sky. A Saudi Arabia group of investors go to Gary Bettman and say, hey, we want to own the Arizona Coyotes. We'll keep them there. We'll build the arena. What does Bettman say?
I think he'd have a hard, long look at it. And because that's a good point there, Kev, because Bettman's been wanting to keep Arizona, which is, I'm sure, is a massive secret for any NHL fans out there, that Gary Bettman wants to keep the Arizona Coyotes in Arizona. But it's all about it is about making money, but at the same time, it's about how it looks overall, right? So I don't think it's all about. Yeah, I did mention that by 2030 they want to have $1 trillion in assets, but I think they could definitely see the NHL as being an opportunity to buy low, and eventually over the next 10, 20, 30 years make a shit ton of money out of it. And yes, it's not a massive sport within the top four in North America, but I could see them potentially seeing that as a good buy low opportunity.
And so I look at it, and well, Gary's going to take a good hard look at it. I just don't think that's something that the Saudi Arabia investment funds is going to be looking at. I think they want that global prestige, and which is why they've got investments in football clubs, footy, as well as now with golf. And then they're going to go on from there. I just don't see it with hockey.
Yeah, hockey is too limited in their global appeal in the sense that it's really just a powerhouse in North America, Scandinavia, and Russia for the most part. Like if we're just generalizing there. So like I don't see enough international appeal for it to really be on their radar. Like I take Devin's point as far as like a buy low opportunity, but I just don't really see that happening. And also in addition to that, like if that proposal did happen, Bettman is at the behest of all the other owners. And if the other owners don't like that idea, ultimately Bettman can't really go behind their backs and do it anyway, because he serves to the owners. So if the owners aren't on board, then I don't see that ever happening.
The owners want to make money. And anytime there's a new opportunity to make money, I don't think they'll shy away from that. Let's put it this way: so they want to have $1 trillion within this current decade, 1 million seconds in days. Just as far as like $1 million go in seconds is 11 and a half days essentially. A billion seconds is just over 31 years. So they're talking about, what I'm saying is, and what I'm trying to compare to is that it's a drop in the bucket, basically, if they want to have a drop $1 billion on a NHL franchise that could eventually make them millions, if they're not over $1 billion, then they would retain their initial investment within a certain amount of time. But it's all about what they want to do and why they want to do it. But I could definitely see the potential of them doing that because they have fuck you money.
Well, Ottawa's going for $1 billion. Whoever is going to end up owning the Ottawa Senators, it looks like that's going for $1 billion. So, which is, I mean, who would have thought the Ottawa Senators would go for $1 billion? But I mean, I think it's just, to me, I think this is something that I think is really interesting to watch, because I don't think that they're going away. I don't think that, I think that we've kind of just had this sort of this passive look, but they've had, soccer. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised now that Messi's playing with Inter Miami that I wonder if they step in and have a look at the MLS here quite quickly. I mean, they certainly aren't going away. And I think that this is a conversation that, just because we're hockey, I don't think that we should ignore it. I think that this was this was the biggest story so far of the sports year. And
I'm not saying ignore it. I'm just saying I just don't see it happening in the foreseeable future within.
No, that's fair.
Within hockey.
I see your point, but the reason I brought it up is because I think that this is something that I'm going to be watching, not because I think that this is going to happen. We're going to wake up tomorrow and the Saudi Arabians are going to own the NHL or anything like that. But I think we're becoming in a very different landscape in terms of a lot of different things in terms of what sports ownership and sport, the business of sport right now is becoming very fascinating to me. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen on that. And I mean,
to your point, if they're jumping into team sports in North America, I think you have a point that with them losing out on Messi, because that's actually another thing that they've been doing is they're starting up their own soccer league over in the Middle East. And they've gotten Ronaldo and a couple of other big names, and they were going after Messi pretty hard. So the fact that he chose MLS over them, I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to maybe take an interest in the MLS.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating. Anything else on this that we need to talk about before we move on?
If you have money, whip it around. I guess. I don't know.
That's got to be clipped. If you have money, whip it around. So we do have we'll just touch on the Stanley Cup final here. As mentioned here, the Golden Knights are one win away from getting the raising the cup. So the cup is in there on Tuesday. I guess this has sort of been. This has mostly been a Vegas series. I think Vegas has mostly dominated this series. Like if I was to give them the part of the UFC analogy here, if this was a points, I'd give it definitely to Vegas. I don't feel that Florida has dominated enough, and I think not only does Matthew Tkachuk look hurt, I think Barkov looks hurt. Bobrovsky's been inconsistent. I mean, I guess you could kind of say that about Adin Hill, but I think Hill has made more big saves than Bobrovsky. Does anyone have any thoughts on the Stanley Cup final and what's been going on? Or,
I mean, Florida definitely looks like the weaker team out of the two for sure. But they also have been the underdogs this entire run that they've been on. It's just that they somehow took out the first, second, and fourth teams in the league on their way to the Cup final. So everyone kind of was starting to wonder if this was a team of destiny. But Vegas certainly seems to be popping a hole in that balloon at this point.
You know, I haven't been paying too much attention to it, to be honest. But I mean, Bobrovsky, we've been waiting for him to kind of come back down to earth a little bit, and it seems like he has. I was hoping for it for the Leafs' sake. That didn't happen. But you know, he had to, the consistency wasn't there and hasn't been there for about 1.5 to 2 years. So am I surprised? No, but you know, he could get back on a heater, and they you know, Florida has been a thorn in the side of the Eastern Conference pretty much this entire year, other than a little stretch near the end there, because technically they're out of the playoffs until Pittsburgh lost to Chicago on the very last game. So, you know, it first of all kind of shows that you never know what's going to happen once you get in there, and LA Kings are a good example of that as well. So, hey, they're down now in the series. Who knows if they could cut back and win it all.
They were down 3-1 against Boston in the first round as well. I think part of the Bobrovsky story is that the pre-scout that Vegas did on him, I think, has worked out really well. They noticed that when he's looking through traffic, he crouches down, so they've been shooting high through traffic, and pucks have been getting through. So that was the biggest thing I've noticed, as well as just that they've been able to get under the skin of Florida. Matthew Tkachuk in a couple of games has gone into the bad Matthew Tkachuk side of things, where he gets distracted by the extracurriculars. Taking 3 10-minute misconducts type deal. So yeah, you got to find a way to he's got to find a way to fight through whatever he's dealing with as well, because he is injured. So it's going to be tough for them, but they do have they do have the confidence in knowing that they have done this before. They have come back from a 3-1 deficit in a series, and even though it's the Stanley Cup Finals and things are a little bit different, you've got players who are more injured. This is part of what makes the Stanley Cup playoffs so interesting, is it is at times a battle of attrition, and it looks like Vegas is the healthier team, and that was something that I don't think people would have thought with the time off that Florida had going into this series.
Well, just to Florida's point, your point, Sean, Florida almost came back again last night. Aiden Hill had to make basically had to make a pretty huge save at the end there to keep that from overtime as well. So, I mean, Florida's pushed Vegas late. I just don't feel that they've pushed enough truly to feel like that they are going to come back, but they won't go away. I think the thing that's also coming away from me is just Vegas's forwards are just so relentless on Florida's defense. Like, no matter which line it is, whether it's the Eichel line, the Howden line, the Carlson line, like any one of them, just when they're able to put pressure on that Florida defense, and they did that to Edmonton, they did that to Dallas too. It's not surprising to me, but they're just so relentless, and it's tough to get out of the zone against them. It's really well constructed, and I mean they're not a group of you wouldn't consider most of them in the higher echelon, other than Jack Eichel and maybe Mark Stone in the upper echelon forwards of the National Hockey League. But man, they're doing their job.
The management group has done a great job of managing and figuring out what a good lineup would look like. The Ivan Barbashev pickup, phenomenal. The Mike Amadio waiver claim was phenomenal from Toronto earlier this year. He's been he's basically been their Swiss Army knife, been up and down the lineup on top line, second line, and now he's on the third line. And Keegan Kolesar, he's been relentless, as Kevin's pointed out on that forecheck. It's the depth of the Vegas Golden Knights have been very apparent, and I mean, just another rubber stamp to depth wins championships, and it doesn't surprise me that they're doing as well as they are.
Yeah, I was actually going to touch on that. I think the overall depth for the Knights has been the difference maker in this series. Everyone was talking about, like, more specifically the defensive depth prior in all the previews for the Cup final, but I think it's overall depth, even on the forward lines. They've been able to roll 4 lines and not worry about running their big guys too heavy because everyone's producing, everyone's kind of contributing and pulling on the rope.
Well, and I still think the best trade that Vegas has made was the acquisition of Chandler Stevenson for a 5th round pick a couple of years ago. Like, he's turned into an absolute gem. And Dev, you talked about Amadio being a Swiss Army knife. That's been Chandler Stevenson ever since he got there, up and down the lineup, on the wing, at center. He's been so good for them.
And 2 massive goals in game 4. I mean,
like, what was Washington thinking? Like, what did they miss? Because he looks like, for the longest time, he didn't feel like a top 6 like forward. He was always felt like he was a third line guy who was playing up above, but he continues to show that he is a good sort of second line center.
What the hell did Florida miss? Marchessault, Riley
Smith.
Like, it's unreal how they protected Petrovic, who was technically in the Flames organization this past year, and he's been absolutely nobody, as these two have been fucking lighting up. It's interesting to see how I think you kind of, I think as far as the expansion goes, you have to let the roll the punches, protect the guys you need to protect. Don't make any fucking stupid outside moves, and you should be okay. Because imagine Florida having Marchessault and Riley Smith on their team.
Yeah. Marchessault has been amazing too. Yeah. And,
I mean, at this point, likely Conn Smythe winner.
There's a couple on
it's between
Vegas,
him and Eichel for me, I think.
Like, you could probably name about 5 guys for Vegas that could potentially be on that short list. But yeah, if I'm putting any money on it, it's either Eichel or Marchessault at this point.
Yeah.
And Deb, you talked about sort of Flames there for a quick sec. I just want to ask you if you could redo and make one of these trades. Make the based off of the rumored price that the Flames are that we're offering up for these players. Would you make the Jack Eichel trade or the Mark Stone trade?
Oh God. Right now, I would say Stone would be, as far as like the incarnation of the Flames right now, Stone would be the pick for me because it's a win now mentality, and it's always been it has been a win now mentality for the past 2 years. Long term, I would love to see Eichel here. Chris, you want to take this one?
I mean, you're the Flames fan here, but
no. The reason why I'm asking is because I'm going down the middle. I'm not picking a side.
Oh, you're pulling a me. Okay,
yes,
I get
yeah. There we go.
Well played.
But like, okay, honestly, I would go 51% Eichel, 49% Stone, because Stone has, I mean, it's looking back on his career as a Knight, and I believe he had one major injury in Ottawa as well. Eichel would be the one for me, but I mean, realistically, it would be a toss-up.
Kev? Well, I already said I wouldn't have done the Eichel deal because it would have been, it just wasn't going to happen. I just don't think Jack Eichel wanted to come to Calgary. I mean, maybe even to press that further on a Canadian team. I just don't see it. But would I love to have Jack Eichel in the lineup here? Sure. But I mean, I think the thing that people have to remember is when we were talking about this trade, we were not sure of his health at the time. And, you know, it really took him a year to get back into what he was supposed to be. So, you know, I think Vegas's patience paid off on this more than anything else, and I think this is what I love about the trade is it really turns out to be win-win for both, because I think Buffalo's become a better team for it, and the Vegas became a better team for it. The Mark Stone trade, I would have done the Mark Stone trade at the time. I think that the Flames were in a position to go a long way, and but, you know, it didn't happen. He ended up signing 8 years in Vegas. Would you have wanted to do that in Calgary? I don't know. It's another interesting question considering everything that has happened after that. So, you know, I mean, there's a lot of what ifs, but I guess I would have done the Mark Stone trade. I don't know if I would have done ultimately his health was the question. Right? Like that was when everybody's talking about that. His health was the question to give up that much. Like I wasn't sure I would do it, but.
And if they did do either one of those trades, would both or one of Johnny Gaudreau or Matthew Tkachuk still be here?
Well, I think Matthew would have been part of the Eichel trade.
I don't think so. I
don't know.
Those weren't the rumors at the time.
Well, I think there was one rumor about that, but
yeah. But hypotheticals, gotta love them.
Yeah, I think
Kev, I'm taking this as a hindsight as 2020. I'm not saying like going back and saying, well, his health and all that. Looking at where they're at now, looking at where the Flames are at now, which trade would have made the Flames better?
Probably the Stone trade in a lot of ways, just because of where the Flames were at the time. You would have had two good lines. You would have had you would have been able to move Lindholm to center with Gaudreau and Mark Stone. You would have had a Backlund Tkachuk line. You would have been able to withstand a Sean Monahan injury. But now you look at that too, I guess, in the hindsight, as we keep going, hindsight being 2020. And I saw someone on Twitter talk about this with Elias Lindholm. Mark Stone is what, 31, and he's got 4 more years at 9.
3 more years.
3 more years at 9.
And then you have Eichel signed for 2 more years after this year at 10.
10, yeah.
It's a good question, honestly.
It's a great question. I love the question, but
especially since Val Mackey was a part of both.
And I mean, the other factor that goes into all of this, and as we blend, I guess, well, there's would Daryl Sutter have ended up here? Would we have known if the Flames, let's take the what if scenario. I mean, we could take this the whole deep way, but would we have known about Bill Peters?
Oh, that was coming out no matter. I think that comes out regardless of what happens with these trades, or at least the Mark Stone trade, because the Eichel one was after. So yeah, I think you still would have had the coaching. Best way to describe it, circus with the Flames there. So yeah. But if you have a line of Mark Stone with Gaudreau and Lindholm, and you extend, yeah. So
yeah, it's really fascinating. It's very interesting. Do you know the one trade though that I don't think Vegas necessarily? I think a lot of people looked at this and thought that people thought Vegas was in trouble. But you know what trade turned out to be a rather underrated move? Was the Max Pacioretty move to Carolina, because that allowed them to move some cap space around, and it allows them to get in a Barbashev and kind of play around with some things, getting that contract out of the way. So, I don't think that you come away with the Vegas saying Vegas wins that trade, but it does help them get to where they are.
Well, like Carolina basically lost an entire year from Pacioretty as well, because he had an unfortunate Achilles injury in the early stages of last year before the regular season started. And I think he played maybe 3 games, and then he popped it again. So unfortunate thing for Pacioretty to go through. And I mean, if that actually happened, who knows where Carolina would have been if they had a healthy Pacioretty, because he lit it up for those 3 to 5 games. So, I mean, yeah, definitely looking at it that way, hindsight being 2020, definitely a great move, because Barbashev is going to get fucking paid. That he's a great top 6, middle 6 player. I mean, we've said Swiss Army knife, I think 3 or 4 times on this podcast. He definitely is one of them as well. So, fantastic move by the upper brass in Vegas.
With all this retrospective thinking, can you imagine what this Vegas team would be like if Nick Suzuki never got traded away?
So no Pacioretty to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Patience. It seems like patience is the key here, fellas.
Someone tell Bill Foley that.
Well, Yeah. What was I wanted the Canadians traded Vegas last offseason for Evgeny Dadonov too. That happened last year too.
And then the whole Danilov to what was it, San Jose or Anaheim?
Anaheim.
Yeah.
Because apparently Anaheim, because I only know about this because Merrick talked about it on a recent 32 Thoughts episode, but apparently Anaheim is looking for a compensatory pick for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that they're still talking about that. Let's talk about. Let's move the Husker part over here, but let's talk about the trades that did happen this week. First of all, Columbus acquired a controversial figure, no question, in Ivan Provorov, and he of not wearing the Pride jersey. And of course, the Flyers acquired Cal Peterson. And a number of prospects were traded a number of different ways. But ultimately, what this allowed is it allowed the Columbus to get Provorov. It allowed the Flyers to get some draft capital, and it allowed the LA Kings to sign Gavrikov. Considering where Columbus is at here, and certainly the word on the street is it looks like it's going to be Mike Babcock becoming the head coach in Columbus. They certainly seem to be going into a go for it now mode. Well, I don't know how I think that's an interesting choice to make in this division, but maybe, I think this feels a little bit New Jersey Devil. You have some young players there. You bring in a veteran coach that has some winning pedigree behind him. There is certainly some black cloud around him as well. And there's some talent there. So I think for Columbus, it's an interesting week. But because I guess and then of course they do the sign and trade to give up a 3rd round pick to bring in Damon Severson as well. Where are we at with Columbus? Or are they on the way up? Or
Well, yeah, they are. They've got a bunch of really good young players, and I think they were expecting to be a little bit more competitive this year. And they went out and got Gaudreau last season. They got Patrick Laine signed to a decent. He's got another 3 years left on that deal. They missed out. They didn't have their number one defenseman in Zach Werenski for the majority of the season, which didn't help. So if you go out and get an Ivan Provorov and a Damon Severson and we just stick to on ice here, and you get Zach Werenski back. They've got David Jiricek coming up through the ranks as well as some other prospects as well.
They still have Goodbranson on the books too.
Yeah, they've got Goodbranson, $4 million for another 3 years. I think that they were hoping to be better than they were this year, and I think they wanted to make some big moves to hopefully help them get take it to the next level, and then go to the and at least be battling for the playoffs, if not make it to the playoffs next year. But if you look at how they've handled this, they got Provorov, and he's got 2 more years left on his deal. They did the sign and trade with Damon Severson, so he's locked up long term. I don't think they're going all in. I think they're going to be looking. This is going to be very strategic. They're going to be looking at players who are going to be willing to either sign long term or already have contracts long term there, or at least medium term. So they're not having to buy rentals. They're not going to be buying rentals. If they're going to get someone who's has a contract coming up at the end of next season, they're going to be looking to re-sign them right away. And if they aren't going to re-sign, they won't make that deal.
They're also missing Alexander Texier as well, because he was in the player assistance program, and that's with the lack of one of the reasons why I think they're going to be looking for a center here, just with the lack of center depth that they have. Boone Jenner is a great NHLer and a great captain, but he is not a number one center. They need to have a little bit more dynamic look up there, especially with a Johnny Gaudreau and a Patrick Laine being on the flanks there. So I got to see that, or I got to say that Jarmo Kekalainen, the GM, is on the hot seat this year. If things don't go well this year, I think he's gone. So I think that they are very much more of a, maybe they won't be all in, because if he does go all in and he sells off the farm or a bunch of picks, then I doubt he'll be a NHL GM at any point in his foreseeable future. But if he's looking at it right now, I think they're going to be making some swings to the fences, and they will be looking to solidify down the middle a little bit more, because you have Mike Babcock coming in there, and obviously they've kind of bolstered their defense a little bit more, which I think is very smart. And you got to hope that Merzlikins has a better year than he did last year, because it was a bit of it was down from what he was projecting anyways from the year before and the year before that. So he's going to have a bounce back year next year, I think. But yeah, they'll be looking down the middle here for a center, if not a number one center. And, it could be Elias Lindholm, as there's been whispers of that potential coming from the Flames to the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Okay, can I just say this? I'm going to say this now. To the Flame fans that are anticipating that the Columbus Blue Jackets will give up the number 3 pick in this year's draft for Elias Lindholm, as Chris has said to me a number of times, stop making fetch happen. It's not going to happen. If Yanni Kekalainen trades the 3rd pick for Elias Lindholm, who, as Devin says, may or may not sign with the Columbus Blue Jackets, his next move better be out of Columbus, because it is an Leo Carlson or an Adam Fantilli, which is one of the more likely of the two. They may not be in the Connor Bedard stratosphere, but they're going to be damn good players. And you are not giving up that for a guy that may not sign. Not a chance in hell. Now, I do think that there is some potential in terms of a trade for Lindholm to Columbus, sure, but it's not going to be the number 3 pick. Forget it.
I don't know. I think there's a chance.
Lloyd Christmas.
Hold on. I'm not saying straight up. I'm saying there's going to be other pieces involved within that trade. Anything's possible within this NHL. You do have to get ownership to sign off on it, which would be a very far-fetched thing to do. But say, for instance, they throw in a Connor Zary, or along with Elias Lindholm. I just think that anything is on the table. Saying that it's absolutely not going to happen. Okay, I'm saying other shit, man. I'm not saying that exactly. I'm saying there's a fucking chance, all right? Like it doesn't have to be straight up, throw some picks in there, whatever. But it doesn't really go with the plan of where the Calgary Flames are at anyways, as far as, okay, who are you going to put in the center ice position? You're going to have fucking Trevor Lewis coming back and playing 3rd to 2nd line center? No, that's not going to be the case. So I'm saying that there is a chance for sure, but the likelihood is probably not.
I could see a Cole Sillinger or a Kent Johnson being involved in that trade. Another guy that I'm kind of curious about, that I might be interested, if I'm the Flames, I have a look at, is Jake Bean, who is an RFA. He's had his injuries, but if you're going to move Noah Hannafin, and you're not sure where you're at with Oliver Shillington, and you don't really have that puck moving depth defenseman necessarily, I don't know. Jake Bean might be a guy I have a look at, and I know his dad is with the organization, but that might be a guy that maybe needs to come home. Let me just throw another insane scenario since you're throwing scenarios out, Devin. Talking about Elvis Merzlikins. I'll wonder out loud if that guy doesn't need a new place to play some hockey, considering all that happened with him there and his friend passing away, and some of the stuff he's had to deal with there. I wonder if there's a Merzlikins for Markstrom possibility, which maybe I'm just tossing that out there. I mean, Friedman's put it out there that the Flames might be thinking of trading, at least having a conversation about trading Jacob Markstrom. I mean,
Does Markstrom want to go to Columbus?
His buddy Johnny's there. I don't know.
He's got a full no move.
Good Branson. Good Branson's there. You know, it is a good conversation to have. And if I believe the quote from Elliot Friedman was that they need to, if Craig Conroy is a good GM, this is exactly what he said. If he's a good GM, he would go down that road and talk to Markstrom about a change of scenery. But yeah,
so that's not real. That's more speculation as to what the Flames could do, not what they.
This is all speculation.
Yeah.
This is all we have no idea what the fuck's going to happen within this entire thing. Like nothing's for sure unless you're.
But I want that. Like I've done this before. I want that clarity. These are not actual rumors that the Flames are actually thinking about. No. This is pure speculation of what they could do.
The speculation that is more likely than not is the fact that you have a three-headed monster going into next year with Vladar, Markstrom, and Wolf, because Wolf needs a shot, right? So what do you do?
Saying that for about 6 months here.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, but you had fucking Sutter at the helm that wouldn't give like Wayne Gretzky as a fucking rookie a goddamn chance. Like, honestly,
what's his number?
Yeah, exactly, 99. The whole thing with this entire thing, or with this entire conversation, is yes, it's all hypothetical. We have no inside information unless we say otherwise. So I'm okay with having it. I love the idea of like, okay, yeah, you know, Markstrom.
I'm not saying we can't have him. I just want that clarification. That's all.
Yeah, I thought I did say that this was pie in the sky. So, but thank you for the clarity on that.
Well, I think what got me is like you said, like Friedman said something, and I always feel like him and Merrick do a very good job doing exactly this, just brainstorming and all this, and then it just gets everyone up into a tizzy about like whether it's a rumor when it's just it's pure just armchair GM speculation, which is so that's some of the funnest stuff you can do. But as long as you I just like that clarification. That's all.
Well, when is it actually like solidified though? Unless like once the papers go through, right? So all this is that what we're talking about is all speculation. There's
complete blind speculation of what they could do. Then there's also the rumors that they're like, well, they actually are thinking about this. There's rumors out there that they are shopping this player and that player. There's levels, right? That's all I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think Sean's more talking about the inclusion of insiders and sources as opposed to just, well, I think this makes sense.
Well, yeah, but like there's still the fact that Dylan is saying Markstrom for Gibson 1-for-1. You know, I sent a thing to Sean about Frank Saravelli saying that Gibson's out, and Sean's like, well, the past few times it's been wrong. And I'm like, well, you know, it's insider information, and so who knows if it's fucking true or not. Right, but it's one of those things where this is why we do this, is it not?
Yeah, it's fun. But I mean, I do think. For Lindholm, this is an interesting question because I don't think Columbus is a horrible place to live. Like, I don't think. Like, it's not, is it near?
Yeah, but he's also going into a potential Mike Babcock situation. Do you know, has he learned from his mistakes? Are you going into, you've just gone through a season with an egotistical coach. You're going into it. Are you going to sign up to go in long term with a team that's hiring another egotistical coach?
it's a fair question. I always just feel, I think that, like, your point well taken, but I also feel that a lot of people think Columbus is Regina or something. It's like, who's going to live in Columbus?
Like, my whole thing with that is it has nothing to do with the city or anything like that. It's the fact that is the on ice part, is the environment there. Is that something that he wants to go through? Then there's also, you throw in the family in situation that we just went through that with Johnny. A lot of that reason was family, and that's fair. And if Lindholm and his family doesn't want that to go there, that's a big part of that discussion as well. And then Dev, you touched on the direction that the Flames want to go. I know there's a lot of like our armchair GM going out there like, yeah, the Flames, maybe it's time for the Flames to retool, rebuild, whatever you want to call it, and make some moves on some of these on players like Lindholm, Hanifin, and all that, and take a step back. But I'm not sure I see that being the mandate from ownership.
It's more so whether or not you got to manage your assets properly. If Lindholm doesn't want to stay, you have to move him before you do. You don't want to have the same situation going into the off season, because I mean we're all butthurt out here in Calgary about it. So, does Markstrom or Lindholm want to win a cup within the next few years? Columbus isn't the place you want to go within that, right? More so Markstrom than Lindholm, because Lindholm doesn't, or does he have that no move? I don't think he does.
He doesn't have any any trade protection, but because of his contract, I think it's basically if the Flames are going to be smart about it, and I suspect they will, they're going to be asking him where he wants to go. And because if they can negotiate either after July 1st, a sign in trade, or you negotiate a repeat of whether him knows he's going to sign an extension, that's going to up his value as opposed to just a pure one season rental.
Yeah.
Also, Kevin, as an aside, Columbus isn't Regina. Columbus is Winnipeg, because that's what they talked about during the Dubois for Line A trade. Was basically they were sending each other into these desolate areas where nobody wants to play.
Well, and he, just speaking of Dubois, he has. Apparently, the reports are he has 5 or 6 teams that he's willing to sign with, and Winnipeg has to make a decision on that as well. So he's out there, or sort of out there. I don't know where those teams are, and I'm assuming the Columbus isn't one of them.
No.
And I only assume.
Well, speaking of the Jets, Hellebuck also announced that earlier today too. He said that he's not signing with Winnipeg.
Yeah, we've talked about how interesting this offseason could be. It's lining up like it could be an all-timer. There's players working to get there where they want to be, and not letting and trying to do that, like work it like Eichel did. So like it's, and then you have teams like Columbus who are looking to make big, bold moves, who want to improve. You've got the Flames who have players they need to make decisions on. You've got teams like St. Louis who had a down year, want to make a splash. So it's Pittsburgh.
Wait.
I think
Washington as well.
To make moves. Yeah. Washington's going to be. Philadelphia is looking to make moves. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they sell off one or two more players here. Looking at someone like a Travis Konechny, Scott Lawton has been out there in terms of speculation on there. So it could be a very, very busy draft weekend to start it all off.
Considering where Philly's at with their rebuild, and then Chicago as well, to bring in a little bit of Canucks talk. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those two teams ended up being a trading partner with the Canucks, because everyone knows that the Canucks need to shed some salary. And those two teams are probably going to be trying to get to a cap salary floor as opposed to the ceiling.
I like just the players that are out there for the Canucks just don't seem to make sense for where Chicago is at. Like I don't think Connor Garland is a fit, but I mean, unless you can think that you can flip Connor Garland at the playoffs at the playoff trade deadline for something else, maybe
Kind of like what they did with Domi almost.
Yeah.
I think that's what they would be looking at if Chicago's acquiring someone like that, is that they're looking more at what they can do with that player asset-wise going forwards than anything else. Because they're still in massive, but they also need someone to play with Bedard, right?
Yeah, they do.
Because the lineup is they've got Tyler Johnson, who's a shell of himself, unfortunately, because of injuries. Andreas Athanasiou, okay player. And then after that, it's the next best, Jason Dickinson. Like they need players to play with Bedard, and so he's not just the only player there. So if they can say get Garland and they move up, they can use that as a way to move up from the 19th pick to the 11th pick, which has been the speculation around them as trade partners. Is it be a draft day move up, move down move for them, for both teams? That's not a hefty price for them to acquire a top 6 forward.
Since we're on the tangent here, I know you wanted to. I wish that there was a better junior CHL NHL agreement, because I am not going to be popular with this take, but I don't think Connor Bedard should be playing in the NHL with the Chicago Blackhawks next year. I honestly think
I agree. I think he shouldn't. The Chicago Blackhawks shouldn't be allowed to have him.
Other than that, and I agree with you. I think that we've had that conversation, but I think Connor Bedard should play in the AHL. I don't think it's going to be valuable for him to play with a really bad team that I don't think they are taking any steps to improve this year. I think that they're slowly building this up. I mean, I know you want to sell tickets, but I would. If it was me, I would find a way to get Connor Bedard in the AHL.
There's no way for him to do that outside of conditioning the way Seattle did with Shane Wright. But that's not good for his development either, because that means he's not playing in the NHL or the AHL until they need to condition him.
Yeah.
So and under the current rules, Kevin, he'll be playing in Chicago. And
I know. I'm saying if the rules, I think that agreement needs to change in some way, though, because I don't think that that's going to be beneficial for Bedard.
Well, but that's also why Chicago needs to get players like get skilled players for him to play with. Because if it's Connor Bedard and a bunch of randoms who aren't going to be there in 3 years, which is what basically this roster looks like right now. Like it's, as you said, they need to find a way to make the next season or two at the very least, at least somewhat good for Bedard's development.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding Kevin correctly here. So are you basically making an argument that like these teams that are bottoming out and have basically shitty rosters when they draft these generational players, like, are you saying that McDavid shouldn't have played on the Oilers in his rookie season either? Like,
No,
is that the
I think
comparison
that
you're trying to draw here?
No, well, he did get hurt that year.
I think what Kevin's getting at is in terms of what's best for the player, what's best for their development to become the best player that they can be. Playing on these shitty teams that are full of third and fourth liners at best isn't going to help them develop at the rate that they would be ideal.
Yeah,
And-
I think we're all in agreement that it's not the most ideal situation, but as far as like the realistic logistics of how the current setup works, like Sean said, there's no way that Bedard's not playing in Chicago.
No, yeah, no, I agree. But I'm saying that I think that there should be a way that you are allowed to put him in the AHL.
I think ideally a lot of people would agree in terms of that. If you're drafted in the first round, and you got players who are just too good for junior. I think people would make the argument with Logan Stankoven this past season. Would his development be better suited to being in the AHL versus playing in the WHL and all that? I think that's basically where Kevin's coming from, I think.
Yeah. Exactly.
And going back to our original conversation about money rules all. So it doesn't.
And I think that's a lot
matter.
of what that is that's I think if the NHL had its way, they would have that. A lot more control of where those players could play, but the CHL wants those stars because guess what? That's what makes them money.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, that would be ideal. But I mean, I think overall you still, I mean, I'm making fetch happen here, Chris, but I mean, there's still a possibility the JT Miller trade could happen because his no movement doesn't kick in until July 1st. Of course, you got Brad Treliv in Devon that is out in the desert having a conversation with Austin Matthews. And this is, this is a guy that got burnt by the said Johnny Gaudreau move. And this is his signature. This is his signature move. This is going to establish what happens with the franchise, what he does with Austin Matthews.
I think that it's for Treliving, it's a two-pronged sort of signature stamp on it on the franchise. What happens with Austin Matthews, which I think he will sign long-term, and then how he reshapes this roster and changes the narrative from core four to just the Leafs.
Devin, there was a trade proposal thrown out on Twitter. I wanted to hear your thoughts. It was William Nylander to the Flames for Noah Hanifin and Andrew Mangiapane. Do the Leafs do it?
I think Leafs do it. You solidify that back end a little bit more. That's one thing that was very apparent within this playoffs that they were missing. And the middle / bottom nine have been very mediocre, and bringing in Mangiapane, who I think would very, very much help that lineup as far as bringing some depth. I mean, he's no William Nylander, but you offset it with having Noah Hanifin on that blue line, and I think both sides would do it, to be honest. With Oliver Kylington coming back, got to expect that hope. Well, you got to hope that being a Flames fan, that Kylington will be back to his how he was showing with Chris Tanev before he had the year off last year due to personal circumstances. So I don't mind it on either end. I can see the positives on both sides, and I would think that. And this is a caveat of saying that you would hope that Nylander would sign with the Flames for probably around the same thing, that $8 to $9 million. He probably will be asking for 10, considering how his notoriety and what his output was. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of asterisks to it, but I think both would definitely consider.
See, I'm trying to figure out Toronto's cap situation with that, because they'd actually gain cap on that, because Nylander's deal is turned out to be very, very good. So, and that Mangiapane deal is very, very suspect at this point. Could he bounce back? Yes, but at this point, it's very suspect.
The projected cap space is $9 million, 9.1
Yeah.
going into next year anyway. So I don't think that would be an issue.
But then you take a big chunk out of that by making that trade.
Did you have to?
Well,
sign
yeah, but you solidify the back end a little bit more. Like, I don't think that's a big thing. Like, yeah, there's a chunk because Hannafin's a shade under 5, and Mangiapane is 5'8". Yeah, it I mean, you'll be gaining just over 3.5-ish million out of that 9. But you get deeper on that back end. Then you don't have Mark Giordano running out there playing fucking 15 to 20 minutes a night. Like it helps on multiple levels. And I guess the biggest question is, what are you signing Samsonov for as well? Because he's an RFA.
Yeah. Now, my question would be, if you replace Mangiapane with Dylan Dubé, that makes more sense for the Leafs.
There have to be a pick within that as well. Then I don't think that Dubé and Hannafin would be enough to get Nylander.
See, I with Mangiapane's contract, I think Dubé has more value in a trade.
For sure, but he's not as good as Mangiapane.
No, I'm with Devin on that.
Mangiapane's defensive game is miles ahead of Dubé's game. Miles.
I would go with Devin on that.
Plus, he's grittier, I think.
Didn't have a great year last year.
No.
But I think he's a 25-goal scorer. I don't think Dylan Dubé is.
As of right now, his trajectory is like, what, 20? I'm hoping for 20.
18 to 21. I think that's his mark, I think.
Yeah.
So signing into a 6x6 deal, as per that Steinberg floated out there, isn't good?
Fuck no. Good God. You fucking walk.
But who would Dubé be using, like, legitimately as his comparable? Like, even, like, forget the 6x6. What would he be using?
Nothing to get that high. I think that was just sort of that was some galaxy braining.
I'd like, if he's going to get a show me deal of a 1 year, I'd say maybe 3.5 to 4. That
Even
makes
then,
the most
it's
sense. That's probably what he's going to be asking for.
He made 2.3. He makes 2.3 for this upcoming season. So,
what was his numbers last year? They were
18, I think, last year.
He got 18. He's had back-to-back 18-goal seasons.
18 goals. So he had 32 the year before and 45 this past year. He played 82 games, so he wasn't injured. It was a -6. I'm going to take that with a grain of salt, but I don't know. It just didn't feel. I'd be curious on how he does under a different development, and it might be a good transition to this new head coach potentially coming on Monday.
Yeah, for me, I think it was Conroy, kind of the Conroy and Huska were the odds-on favorites. I'm curious who they're going to bring in with him. What do you do with Mitch Love?
Mitch Love will stay as AHL, I think.
I think he'll be promoted.
I'm kind of this is kind of what my theory I've been running with, they bring up Mitch Love to assist, and I think that they bring in an Alex Tanguay to possibly run the Wranglers. He has had success as a minor league coach. He's with the Iowa Wild. I think that may be a good place for him, and I think there needs to be more offensive creativity in here. So I'm kind of hoping that Alex Tanguay is in this organization at some point. I mean, but
do you know his contract situation?
Well, he's an
Detroit?
assistant. He's an assistant.
Yeah, he's an assistant coach. So is he going to? You say you're promoting Mitch Love from AHL head coach to assistant coach. Is Alex Tanguay taking a demotion from an NHL assistant coach to an AHL head coach?
Depends on what he wants.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, like if you're going off of what normally people would do, no, they normally wouldn't do a demotion, right? But
And would
I think that
Detroit
there's
let him do that as well?
Yeah.
I think that there's a potential for it for sure.
I think it's a long shot, in my opinion. I think it depending on what his contract situation is, I don't know. But if he's signed say through till the end of next year, I think that's maybe something that the Flames look at next year. Once his contract is up, if he doesn't get re-upped by Detroit, but if his contract's up at the end of this year, then he's I could see it happening.
Yeah, I think with the way that the organization has been talking about Mitch Love, it just feels to me keeping him with the Wranglers doesn't make sense. I think that they want him to be part of this organization. I think when Conroy said that they want these young players to take jerseys, I think Mitch Love helps that a little bit, at least because he knows where the strengths and the weaknesses are. But I do think that it has to be, I would think that they are going to bring in some sort of veteran voice. And I partially have wondered if Travis Green is it.
I mean,
is there a connection between
the interview process quite deeply at this point?
Yeah, I mean, he has the connections with Toffoli, Markstrom, and Tanev, and I'm trying to figure out if him and Nonis work together. I don't have any.
No, I don't think so, because Travis Green was
in Utica prior, and yeah, I don't think there's any intersection between those two.
And well, if you're also talking about potential veteran leadership within that coaching staff, what's happened with Kirk Muller? Right? Does he want to move on? I know that the locker room really liked him. He was kind of the good cop to Daryl's bad cop last year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of re-up him. Depending on if there's any more vacancies or potential opportunities for him to actually get another head coaching job, as he once was a head coach for the Montreal Canadiens for I think it was 1 year.
Yeah, and I think if they're bringing in someone for a veteran, they would have interviewed. And I think I don't know if we would have heard, but I think they would have interviewed him. And I have not heard anything about Travis Green being part of this search for the Flames.
I have heard that. I heard he was one of the finalists. That's why I brought him up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that are not really happy with Muller, and I think it's because they looked at that power play. He was responsible for the power play, but I wonder if you put him where Huska was, and you bring in maybe you bring in Mitch Love to run the power play, just switch some things around. Maybe, I don't know.
Or Mark Savard as well. He's been in talks.
That's another interesting name. That name interested me as well. I think, yeah, and he would definitely. That could be a guy I could also see go to the Wranglers too.
Yep, for sure. He's
I think
head coach in the OHL.
yeah, that seems like a more natural progression than the Tangay situation.
I would say Tangay is most likely not coming in this year. I think once Iggy is involved, and I mean they get the quote unquote old boys back together of Conroy, Tangay, and Iginla. I'd say once Iggy's involved, it could be different.
First off, too, wouldn't that be fun?
Get Kipper back?
Yeah, bring Kipper back. Teach the
kidding me?
goalie how to smoke.
Smoke and stretch. That's all I know.
Smoking and stretching.
And fishing, I guess.
And fishing. Smoking, stretching, fishing. That's how you play goal in this league. Yeah. So I guess we'll dig into that more tomorrow. But I mean, it's hard for me to say that Huska is the right or wrong decision. I mean, we'll have to see how this plays out. But I think
I've made my feelings known on Huska. I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I just the transition from assistant coach to head coach in the same organization can be tough. I think it's very rare you see that transition go well. So maybe he's the exception to the rule, but that's my biggest concern with with the Huska hiring.
I think he's going to be a good fit, to be honest. I mean, I wanted Love over Huska, but it does make a lot of sense why Huska would be a good fit. I've heard from multiple sources that he is a quote unquote a player's coach, but he's a hard ass too. If you're not producing, he's going to let you know, and he's going to try and figure something out with the player who's struggling. And he was a big part of Shillington, a big part of Anderson's development, and I think I think on a separate note, it kind of is a shoe-in if it is Huska that Rasmus Anderson will be the next captain of the Calgary Flames within that leadership role. But I think that, to Sean's point, it could be a bit difficult to start demanding that respect, than be the good cop. But I hope he's the exception to the rule, because this is a big hire for Craig Conroy, being his first one, as we're talking about tree living, with his situation in Toronto being, his first move is to figure out what's happening there. And it's same with the Craig Conroy. It remains to be seen, but I have faith.
Well, you also have to wonder, the other thing just to that, for the Flames, you have to wonder in that locker room, they have to be embarrassed about last year and come back with a bit more piss and vinegar in their step of that training camp.
If Huberdeau doesn't come out and fucking light the world on fire, there's going to be massive questions about what the fuck is happening with his progression as an NHLer, because he was complaining, and it's very much documented about his agent, being very vocal on Twitter, and how he was denying he had nothing to do with it. But we all know at the end of the day, him and Nazem Kadri had problems with that with the coach, and if they don't come out with their lives on the line, what the fuck is going to happen with the Calgary Flames moving forward? Yeah,
that's the question.
Well, that goes back to I think the biggest thing for Conroy now that it looks like the coaching is settled is figuring out what's happening with Backlund, Lindholm, Toffoli, Hannafin, to figure out whether or not they're staying. Yeah, Tanev in a different way. I think he's not necessarily going to be part of the future of the Flames. Just because of his age and the wear and tear. The contract has aged better than I expected. He stayed healthier longer than I expected, but once he was down, he was, unfortunately, as much of a warrior as he is. I'm not sure how much longer he's got in it. But yeah, Conroy's got to figure it out. He's got to figure out who wants to stay, and if players want to go, he's got to find the right deal that makes sense for this team in the direction that they're trying to go towards. Which, as much as rebuild, retool, however you want to call it, might likely be the most, what's the best way of putting this, rational way to do it if you were just dealing without ownership and all that, and players and everything. I still think they're going to be looking to win. So even if say if Lindholm does want to leave, I think you are going to see them try and swing it more of a hockey deal as opposed to a futures deal, or it might be a complicated one where there's a third team involved to make it so it's a little bit of both.
Tanev staying in my mind. If he moves, it's going to be a trade deadline deal, and the Flames are already out. But sorry, I think I might have you might have misheard me because I said goaltending instead of Tanev.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, they got to make the decision on goaltending, figure out what they want to do with because you got Markstrom, Vladar, and then you've got to find a way to at least make sure that the carrot is there for Dustin Wolf.
Yeah, I see Tanev as a trade deadline move. Toffoli, I could see staying. I think he likes.
I expect we have a Toffoli extension early in July.
Yeah, to me, the bigger questions are Lindholm, Backlund, Hanifin. I think those are the three that the other ones, I think he will get I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Zadorov extension soon too. I think he legitimately wants to stay.
I think he does too, but at the right price, I'm okay with it. Keep him on the third pairing. It's fine.
Yeah.
I think a Zadorov extension would be a mistake for the Flames, in my opinion. Because it would be an overpay.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happens.
Yeah.
Well, I got to try. Got to try and sign Stetcher as well because he was a fan favorite at the end of the year.
And the thing with the blue line as well is the question mark that Shillington will be. A year away from the game. How quickly can he get back to where he was the season before if he gets there?
Yeah, that's the thing, I guess, with the Hanifin part is I want some of these are not off-season moves. I think you have to wait, especially with Hanifin. I think you need to wait at least to see where training camp is with Shillington before you make a Hanifin move.
Totally. Well, and I'd be curious, Sean, what are you thinking about Toffoli's extension? What would you be looking at? Because he's 31 years old.
I think it'd be a 2-3 year around the same cap hit, 4.25. Maybe a little bit more, just because the cap's gone up since that deal was signed, and he's been pretty good.
5.5. I could see that.
Yeah,
man.
The thing with the Hanifin move, I think it would be, again, I don't think it's going to be a futures move. I think it will be. You will get NHL players back in that deal, whether it's forwards, defense, or whatever. I think you will get NHL players back in that deal.
They'll be forwards. They're not looking for more defense. If for the Hanifin, Toffoli, I'd be very bearish on signing him more than 2 years. I'm not. I think he's done amazing, but having a career year, 31 years old, might be a one-off.
Yeah,
could be, but at least the one thing he's shown to be durable. So that's the one that's where I could see 3.
3 at the right price point for sure, because he's a great penalty killer. He has that bite in the playoffs that you really want, and but I wouldn't go more than that. But that's the whole thing, is that you will be paying for more, at least one more year or $1 million more than you really want to if you want to keep him. If you want to get him to stay, because there's going to be a bunch of other teams that will want him at that cap hit. I mean, look at what Branson went for. I mean, you're talking about 2 separate players, but like this, the sentiment's still the same.
Well, and you're gonna have you've got a fascinating it's, the other thing that's going to be fascinating is it's a weak UFA market, but I mean, Radko Gudas is going to get overpaid. And so is Ivan Barbashev, for that matter. They are going to get overpaid.
Yeah, that's the weak UFA market is what's part and parcel with all these players trying to negotiate where they're going next and take a little bit more control in their careers.
Yeah,
that's what's going to make this offseason potentially big, as an understatement.
Yeah, and you got some draft moves that's going to happen as well. It's going to be fascinating. We kind of went all over the map here. Did we miss anything?
I want to say we covered everything that we wanted to cover.
Yeah, I think we got it all.
And we were at Tyler time at 1:35, so that's good.
It's Chris time this time.
It's Chris time. Yes. But I guess just one other thing. Congratulations to Quebec Remparts on winning the Memorial Cup. And that was, I don't know if you guys saw that, but that was as suffocating of a performance that I have seen from a junior hockey team on one other junior hockey team that I've ever seen. That was a beatdown, unfortunately, for Seattle. But yeah.
And with the big question coming out of that is whether or not we see Patrick Waugh behind the NHL bench again here soon.
The rumors are churning as far as that's concerned. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see what happens with Ottawa, with that ownership group, and if they want to bring in some big names, he would be.
If that sale finally goes through.
Yeah. It's only a matter of time, right?
Yeah, we should do a ranking next time, maybe, of like the most interesting off-season places, because Ottawa's interesting because you've got
DeBrincat wants out. You've got Dubois who wants out of Winnipeg, as well as Hellebuck's not going to sign a new deal. So yeah, there's just wait a week. When's the draft again? Because it doesn't feel like it's that far away.
I want to say it's the 23rd, if memory serves.
28th, I believe.
28th?
Yeah, it's a Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday.
Off the top of my head.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, for sure. It is the 23rd. I have that day
28th.
off.
Yeah.
What they do. Anyway. Yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll do we'll next week we will have a Stanley Cup winner at some point between Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. So we'll talk about that. We'll have more on Ryan Huska. I'm sure there's going to be a couple of other trades.
Well, I think a lot of what's been holding it up just is the lack of certainty on what the cap will be.
Yeah. But it's going to be fun. It'll be fun.
Yep.
How do we follow everyone?
I am Bearded Canuck 03 on Twitter.
I am at Shanize on most social media.
You can follow me on Twitter at Gordhouse09.
Tyler is TNOBLE. I am KEVOLE. Fireside Chat, give them a follow as well. I think they are recording tonight to talk about the Huska situation. So they give them a follow as well. Follow us on Twitter, Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com, Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com, Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as to the Area 51 Sports Network. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.